My name's Susan Darcy, and my job on a film is unit publicist. And what that means is that I work on a film for the length of time that it's in production. And obviously, if it's filming abroad, I go abroad. If it's filming in England, I'm in England. And I start on the film about 2 or 3 weeks before the start of shooting, and I finish about a month afterwards. Well, I got into the business via journalism. I worked as a show business journalist in London on various magazines and freelance for newspapers. I was invited by a publicist that I knew who was about to start on A Bridge Too Far, and he decided that it was far too big a film to do it all by himself, and he wanted to work with him and to handle the press on location. And so he said, would I consider going to Holland for 6 months? I thought, you bet. And I'd never worked so hard, and I'd never had such a good time, and it changed my perspective of what I wanted to do. But after the Bridge Too Far experience, there's no way that I was prepared to go back into journalism. Well, in actual fact, with a film like Sahara, it was very, very difficult because travelling would have taken the journalists about 3 days to get into the desert and so on, get set up, and then a day working, and then probably a couple of days getting home again. So we made a decision that we would do all the press when we were in Marrakesh or when we were in Spain. And while we were in the desert, we didn't actually have any press visiting the set, because journalists, as much as they would like the idea of coming to a remote location like that, can't really spare the time. And I'm sure their editors would feel that if it took a week to do a job that basically they were only on the set for 1 day, they would take a dim view of that. Well, I think it's vitally important because without the fans, the movie would not succeed, would not exist, you know. Everything has to be fan-based. And I think most actors, most stars would agree that they have to consider the fans, which they do. And I think they are a vital part of the job. I think you have to target where your film is going, who it's aimed at, and I think the trouble starts when you haven't got a clear idea of what you're aiming at. There was an example of that in a film that I did, The Golden Compass, which should actually have been 3 films. It should have been the whole of his Dark Materials, but because the fans were really keen on the movie, but in America they were very worried about the religious content, so they stopped aiming it at the fan base. Therefore, the youngsters for whom it was really intended didn't get to see it because it wasn't publicised in the media that they would be following. And it was a real shame because in the rest of the world they loved that movie and they would have been eager to have the 2 sequels. Personally, I was really sorry we didn't continue because it was great to work on. It was a lovely movie. Well, I think it's a great privilege to be involved in any movies, but I think certainly I was extremely lucky to work on the two of the Indiana Jones movies. I did the Temple of Doom and also The Last Crusade, and then I was also invited back to do Saving Private Ryan. The lure is working with directors like Steven Spielberg. I mean, it is a real masterclass when you watch a director like that working. And there's a great thrill to being on those huge pictures with masses of special effects and stunts and so on. I mean, there's no getting away from it. It's a real thrill, and it's a great privilege to do it. And it's hard work. I mean, the amount of labour that goes into those sort of movies and getting it right, you know, is quite phenomenal. I've been very lucky. There's a huge difference between interviewing on the set while it's happening, and the actors in the moment, than the press junket, which is a nightmare situation. The actors are usually sort of 3 or 4 films along, so they can't really remember with any clarity how it felt to be making that previous film. And also, each journalist tends to ask the same question when they come into a press junket, and they've got a very few minutes with that actor. But oh yes, they must ask the same questions. I mean, actors lose the will to live during press junkets. They really do. So do publicists. It is a nightmare creation, but it has to happen, you know, because everybody wants their own little slice of the cake. No, I don't think so really, because I think the audience is pretty much as it's always been. I mean, they always wanted lots of information. I mean, the way that the access that press has, that has changed dramatically because it's become such a huge worldwide business now. It's so global. Whereas in the past, it was quite easy for actors to have access to the set. There were far more one-on-one interviews done. Just it was accepted by the actors and by the production that, you know, they would need to sort of service the needs of the press, and they would do so gladly. Whereas now it's a matter of persuasion, persuading the personal publicists that most of the actors have, dependent again on the sort of film you're making. If it's very intimate film on very small sets, then it's really disruptive having press there. Whereas if it's a big special effects movie, there's lots of downtime when actors have got 10 minutes where they can come and chat to a few people. And if you've got actors who are keen to do it, among whom I would say Angelina Jolie and Matthew McConaughey. There are actors who are really keen. They know what they're doing, and they know how important it is, and they do it remarkably well. There are others who would much prefer not to see the press on the set, you know, and you have to kind of go with the flow on that. You can't fight City Hall. It's very exciting going to the premieres. I mean, you know, it's a bit of gee whiz and very nice parties and so on. The red carpet is, I mean, extraordinary. I mean, when it was while we were doing the Golden Compass, Nicole Kidman asked me if I would take her to the premiere of Happy Feet. So I went with her, and that was really extraordinary because the photographers went completely crazy when she came into view, you know. And it's madness. You can't hear, and it's real sort of amazing panic going on, and so on. It's a different side of filmmaking. It's an interesting experience, and you know the major stars handle it very, very well, I think, and they like to do it. I suppose the favourite experiences are things which are slightly outside the normal. I remember when I was working on a film called Memphis Belle, and we invited the original surviving members of the Memphis Belle crew who fought in World War II, and they came over to England where we were making the film up near Lincoln, and they stayed with us for a week, and that was extraordinary because the first night they were there, we arranged a dinner for them at the hotel, and I sat the actors next to their real life person, and it was amazing sort of having that experience. And after dinner, Harry Connick, who was playing the rear gunner, he went to the piano and started playing the piano. I mean, that's sort of magic. Well, in a sense, I was lucky because I didn't have to publicise them when they came out, when you knew they were rubbish. That was somebody else's job. I mean, all the time you're making a film, you can believe that it's going to be good because you haven't seen it. So, you know, your expectation is all. I was fortunate because I don't think I ever did a film, well, one or two films that I did which I knew was probably not going to be very good. Well, to be anything in films, do it, go for it. You need to have a lot of stamina, a lot of enthusiasm, be able to take the knocks, but it's such a rewarding profession to get into, and it's so exciting, and you know the rewards are very great, and you're contributing to something which is the real fundamental entertainment medium, and that's fascinating. It's worth doing, it really is. And I think just keep at it, keep going.